Wow, they turned on my mic. That's good. I guess that means we begin. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Dean. Oh, my name's not up there, so now you know. My name's Dean. I'm not Lou. This is like a session that we've had to rearrange because Lou is feeling really ill. So I'm here to do something fun on the UX and UI side, and I think you'll enjoy it. But first, the conference has asked me to make an announcement. There is a code of conduct policy associated with the conference, and everyone, me included, is expected to abide by it. So the conference is making this announcement in every session this afternoon, just to remind us of that. Okay, that being said, we begin. Again, my name is Dean. I'm a UX UI guy. Okay, that means all day, every day, all I do is work with developers to make complex interfaces happen. I've been doing that my whole career. It's really, really fun. And today is going to be a story of what I've learned over all these years. Okay, once upon a time, there was an interface, and it was created by he who shall remain nameless. And here it is. And this interface was created with great care. It was created with all sorts of UX principles in mind. Spaciousness, ease of reading, clarity, just wonderful simplicity and openness and all the things you hear about that are important for UX, okay? Whatever that means, UX. It's a word we throw around, right? Very proud of this was the developer. So proud, and some of you have seen this illustration if you were in my other session. So proud. The developer hands over the interface to the user, only to be met with complete astonishment. The user looks at the interface and says, "What are you giving me? What is this thing you're giving me?" And I go, what do you mean? And so I gave him this. I'm sorry. The user who shall not be named gave him this. And this is what we're left with. And the developer, who again shall remain nameless, is left to wonder what happened, because it's not just that the user was taken aback by it. The user hated it. Hated it to the North Star, hated it. Would spit on it if they could. And so I'm wondering why? What did they hate about this? Answer: everything. They hated the bigness of it. They hated the spaciousness of it. They hated the simplicity. They hated the white space. They hated the color. They hated the words. They hated that you couldn't do enough on the screen. They hated that it took too long. They hated that it took too many clicks to do anything. In short, complete failure, utter hate. And so today we're going to figure out why that happened and what lessons we as developers can learn from it. Okay. This is what we typically hear, right? Apple does great simple stuff. Google does great simple stuff. And here's your stuff. Your stuff sucks. Your stuff is awful. Your stuff is crowded, gross, disgusting. I hate even looking at it. That's what we hear all the time. And that's what, air quoting UX people say, well, we are here to fix this problem for you. If you'll just listen to everything we say, it'll be fine. So the question again, why was this so bad? I just needed to know the answer. To figure out the answer, we're going to take a little trip and we're going to learn about different user types and what they need from interfaces. All right, this is going to take us all the way to the answer. So this is sort of an invention of mine. It is as scientific as I could make it, which means it's just my opinion. 4 UI quadrants. Let's say at the bottom we've got stuff that you hardly ever use. Occasionally you use it. Stuff at the top, stuff you use all the time, right? You can think about what those things are any moment, right? Okay, so that's top and bottom. Now, left and right. Over here on the left, the novice user. Think like your grandma, right? For me, my mom, right? Or just the normal, average, everyday person out there who's not us. Us, okay? Over here on the right, there's not a thing you could throw at us that we can't handle, okay? In fact, the harder the better, we'll figure it out because, you know, we're so very smart, okay? And we are. We're awesome. Okay, so there you go, your 4 quadrants. You are now at a conference where you've been presented with 4 quadrants, so that's proof that you've been to a conference. Here are the 4 quadrants that I've got. And you could map all these different interfaces, right, to these quadrants, right? Up there you've got, you know, stuff that novice users use all the time, stuff that power users hardly ever use, and you got this black and white stuff on the corners, and that's what we're going to focus on. Stuff that power users, us, use all the time, and then stuff that people who are new or novice hardly ever use. These are really different things. So we're going to plot different types of apps, right? So you can say, novice user all the time, I'm texting, whatever, I'm using a banking app. Everybody needs to be able to do this, everybody. And they have to be able to do it without thinking, without reading anything, without asking. That's what it means to be a novice user. But they also use stuff every now and again, right? Not all the time. Maybe you want to plan a vacation, or if you're in America, you got to do your taxes and it's very hard to do. Maybe you're taking some kind of medical survey, which we'll all look at. But these are things you don't do very often. And novice users, if we know anything about them, it's that they forget everything every time they use something. And the next time they go to use it, they've forgotten how to use it. So they have to learn anew every time. So even rare things have to be made as if someone's coming to them new, because that's what it's like for them. So let's look at planning a vacation, right? You look at something simple like Airbnb. First thing I want you to see is how big and spacious everything is. There's like nothing to do here, but just go find a place. That's it, just one thing. And when you go to find a place, you're presented with very common interactions. Here's a map, here are the places. That's it. This passes the my mom test. She would look at this and say, I know what that is, and I pretty much know what to do. Winner, winner. When you go to look at a place, you're just looking at one place. And here are some stuff about that place. That's it. When you look at the pictures, one at a time, just going through it, no worries here. Nothing to make you scared. On mobile, there's like one thing to do. You scroll, maybe there's another thing. That's it. Perfect for the novice user who has to remember what this is like when they come back another time. Okay, taxes. In America, if you're from America, you know that doing taxes is a real pain. It's very complex. It's not fun. It's the worst. And there's all these apps that we have that help us do our taxes. This is one of them. And taxes are super complex, but the interface has to be super easy because everyone does their taxes. My mom does the taxes, right? So it's got to be crazy simple. So notice on a typical screen, there is literally only one thing to do here, is to say, you do it or I'll type it. That's it. That's really it. One question, a bunch of answers, and they're pictures, right? It's not even text. When you're on a mobile device, you barely have one thing to do per screen. Just barely. What about a medical survey? So say I hurt my arm or whatever, and I go to physical therapy and they help me out. Yay, I'm strong again, as you can see. And I have to fill out the survey, and they hand me a template, or a tablet rather, and say, this is what you have to fill out. This is my best side, so this is good. Okay, wait a minute. You ready? You got it? Okay, all right, okay, good. Okay, they hand you this tablet, and it's got to be for everybody. It's got to be something that, like if I were 90 years old or if I were 5 years old, I have to be able to basically use, well, maybe not 5, let's say 10, all right? It has to be useful if I have motion problems, or my hands shake, or what if I don't see well? What if I don't see at all? It's got to work for everybody. So this screen really takes simplicity all the way for the novice user. Buttons, humongous. There's like one thing to do. You even remotely close, you're going to get it. Okay, and I assure you, this follows rigorous, proven, scientific UX rules for how interfaces like this must work in order to succeed. Just look at that next button. It's enormous, right? And it's down at the bottom of the screen, so it's incredibly easy to get to. There is no figuring this out, no thought. That's for a novice user. Big, spacious, open. Okay, and at the end, hey, you did it. Okay. Now, novice users care about this stuff. Is it okay? Did I do it right? I did it right, didn't I? Oh, I did it right. Okay, that's a novice user. They don't want to be scared by interfaces, and they are scared by interfaces. They just want to be happy, satisfied that they did it. And it's a great feeling for them, great dopamine rush. That's why these interfaces are like this. They're extremely simple, they're spacious, they're open, they're plain spoken, few words, few actions, all of that. That's why that's true. There's nothing at all wrong with that, right? And those principles applied to software should work. Now, the real fun. Us, right? While we're here. Let's take it one step further. Let's not just say power users. Let's really rock and roll with it, because many of us are expert users, and many of our users are expert users, which means they're power users that use a system all the time. They probably are trained on it. They probably can train other people on it. They probably have muscle memory on it. Right? Especially if they use a keyboard. They don't have to even think or look, and they're doing really complex stuff. Right? This is sort of the us's of the world. They care about this stuff. This is the stuff we're making often, right? This is the stuff that we typically work on development teams. Really serious stuff that's got big grids, so many grids. More grids than you can think of. You need more horizontal space than you could possibly imagine, and then add more, a lot more. Stuff like this, crazy data dense stuff that you have to look at all day long, and it has to be efficient. All right, this is what we care about. This is what most of our users care about. Is it fast? Does it get in my way? Does it help me do my job? Does it not annoy me? All right, this is what expert power users care about. Efficiency. Don't you feel that way? Right? When you're working with something, don't you want that? Right? I want that. In fact, if you talk to a power user, you talk to us and you show us an interface that slows us down, that's annoying, more clicks, is a bad workflow, we basically hate you. We will hate your product, anything that gets in the way of our productivity. No, no, no. That's why interfaces for power users and expert users have to do different things. They are very complex. You can do a billion things with them. Who knows what you're going to do? I don't know what you're going to do. Maybe one of 100 or 200 or 300 things. They're dense. You're packing information in. You're trying to get a lot on the screen. That's hard to make. That's hard to design well, okay? And it kind of flies in the face of this idea of UX design. Because UX designers, if you are in the audience, you're probably trained here to think that all those things I just said, complex, dense, more stuff, tight, tends to be bad. And you probably got UX people yelling at you about that stuff. I'll tell you what they're really yelling at when we're done, because they're not yelling at this stuff, they're yelling at something different. They don't realize it yet. But this is counterintuitive, right? This should be right, but it's so wrong. So very wrong. Now, we have another problem though, because most cases when complex software is being made, there are no real designers. It's a tough specialty to be really good at designing complex interfaces. Not a lot of people do it well. Often it's just left to dev teams. We're still not in a place where we really have widespread adoption of UX people embedded in dev teams. It's just not really true for the most part yet. It's getting better, right? So, but in most the cases we have developers working on stuff, and they're like, if some is good, more is better. We're just gonna throw everything on this car, and the way we make a Volvo is this way. We just put everything in it. But because we have no training, right? Most developers have zero training on usability or UI or design. I mean, it used to be that developers got that training years and 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 years ago, but not anymore. We've left that all to the humanities people, unfortunately. And that's why over the years, you get stuff like this. All this stuff is real. Some of it, I dare say most of it, is currently in use. Okay? That's why you get stuff like this, because development teams are just doing their best. I don't know how to make an interface right or better. Maybe colors, perhaps icons. People love icons. That looks better, right? Now it's usable. Terrible interface. Sorry if anyone's here from Dropbox. This is real. This is in existence right now. Back in America, if you want to plant a new tree in your yard, you got to call 811 because there's probably some pipes under your lawn that you need to not hit. So you call this number or you fill out this form. People come out, they spray paint lines all along your road and say, this is where the pipes are, don't dig there, you can put your tree here. That's it, that's all this is. So you fill out this form, okay? You tell me that doesn't scare my mom. My mom can't do this. She would take one look and say, no, where's the phone? Imagine the error messages she gets. Tell me now she can handle that, right? Shocking, but live now. So we have two problems that we have to wrestle with here before we get into how to do UI right. We basically have these modern design standards, the UX designy standards. They're totally wrong for complex web. Well, wrong is a strong word. Misapplied, we'll see in a minute, is the right way to think about it. And then if we just have dev teams, we're going to miss something, and time pressure and budget pressure means we just got to get something out the door, and the developer who likes to write the most gets to do the error messages, right? Okay, I want to prove to you today that you can make super complex UI, the stuff we make all the time. You can make it extremely well. You can design it well. It can be usable. It can test well. You don't even have to know what this means, okay? Just know it's complex, and the people who use it look at it and stare at it all day, every day. It tests extremely well with them. The users love this. And it's super complex, and there's a ton of data, and what is that graph? Who knows what this stuff over on the left is? Looks kind of nice, right? Don't need to know, just know that there's principles behind this that make it usable. We're going to explore a little bit of that today to show you that there are things we can do to make the stuff we make as good as this. And by the way, good is defined by, do the users use it? Are they efficient with it? Are they productive with it? Do they love it? That's all that good means. That's a way to define good design. It doesn't have to be pretty to fulfill any of those categories. This happens to have a little good visual to it, but it didn't have to work well. Okay, here we go. The first thing we have to worry about when we're thinking about complex UI is space, right? This was the main problem with that example that poor developer made early on, is that space wasn't used well for complex digital product users. So when you look at this screen, you see, a lovely little array of stars. It's very nice, right? And, you know, when we look at just a few stars and they're arranged well, it looks good. Expert users look at this and say, you know what I want? I want more stars. They'll probably look at this and say, you can fit more, man. You could have fit more. You could have made them a little smaller. You could have interlocked them. We could have had more stars. All right? So we want to conserve space. And the first things I'm going to show you are things that you already know. And then we'll go into stuff that's a little bit different. All right? So first thing we want to do is minimize the shell. We all know this. In fact, this is really well understood throughout the industry. There's your shell. You have like a top bar that says, this is the thing, this is where you are, this is the thing you're using, and maybe a little bit of navigation. Maybe, right? That's better. Let's make that thing smaller. Even better if it goes away, okay? Because we want as much space as we can get. We can't get enough space. That's the first rule. So that means that this area here, we'll call it the interaction area. It's got to be as big as you could possibly get it. Notice it's as wide as we can get it. Like that gray bar, boy, it'd be great if that went away, because that could be another two-digit column we could fit in this grid that we got to put in here, right? Okay. We need to be careful of scrolling for complex digital product users, because anything that they have to do that stops them from doing work, they despise, right? So here's another interface done by someone who shall not be named. This was tested with users, and the grid, that's the star of the show. Does it look like the star of the show? No. It looks like a thing, like 2 rows, okay? And so the first thing the user said was, sure would be nice if we saw more than 2 rows of data, wouldn't it? And the team is forced to say, yeah, that was kind of like job 1, wasn't it? So all this stuff up here, it's too big. They said, why are we looking at these big contact cards? We don't need to see those that big. We don't even want those. Those go away. Everything else gets smaller. Look at that top bar. Too big. It doesn't need to be that big. And this was fixed a lot more, and we'll see we did more with the grids. Oh, there I said we again. Okay. I mean the developer who shall not be named. Okay. Truth is, I've just made basically all the mistakes that I'm about to talk to you about I've personally made. So, okay. Okay. Data has to be scannable. Everything has to be scannable. What that means is if you were to close your eyes and open them and look at an interface, in the barest instant, you should know exactly what's going on in that interface without having to think about it. That's what scanning means. Novice users really need that, but so do we. We actually need that too. It's not enough that we slowly learn what's in there. We have to actually find it quickly. So if you go back to that example we showed before, this is actually just pieces of a dashboard. But the main thing to see here is that quickly at a glance, you see there's 5 things. I know what these things are. And I could simply approach them visually very easily. All right. All that we've done to do that is simply label them clearly. That's it. They're not even huge labels, really. We could have probably made them a lot smaller and still successful. Each block is self-contained. It's apart from other blocks. It feels like one thing. Those are very simple things that everyone can do. You don't have to be a special person to know that that is something you could look at without wondering what you're looking at. Okay, icons, basically don't use them unless you really have to. Because most of us don't need that, do we? Right? We know what we're doing. There's a calendar icon in here. You know why? Because Everybody knows what the calendar icon is. Everybody. And it actually uses less space than anything else. And if it's an option that everyone understands, you can use it. That's actually a rule like for novice users too. If you find something that every single person in the world understands what it is, you're allowed to use it, right? With complex product users, there's just a bigger array of things they understand. And we want to avoid big clunky things. This is an example from a UX designer, okay, in a portfolio. And they were trying to show that they're amazing at interfaces. I would never hire this person, ever, 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 because they're violating nearly every rule I've just gave you. Everything is big, everything is clunky, there's too much, you don't know where to even look, you have to really look at it to even see what it all is, right? I mean, that's not crazy artsy, that's just obvious, right? Using too much space, I don't even know what it is. They're just trying to flex their visual muscles to no effect. I wouldn't hire this person. And in fact did not. Okay. Interfaces are super complex. We can't show everything. We know this, right? So we only show what we must see and then reveal what we might need to see if and when we need it. Right? And again, some of this stuff is really obvious. I'll start with a super obvious one. And you've seen this before. Just let's say your left nav, you hardly ever have to touch it. Like in a blue moon, you touch it. Well, you don't need to see it all the time. Right? So in this case, in this application, it looks like this. Only rarely opened, so it's closed by default, plenty of room. All you need to know is that there's nav there. That's all that's really needed to know. You can do the same thing with things like radio buttons. Sometimes radio button options in forms, there's a lot of stuff associated with them. You can't just put all of that everywhere in like a modal. It's crazy. It just gets insane. And that's why we've suddenly, modals are as big as screens now. And things like that. So let's say you wanted to check yes. Well, then reveal the stuff. It's simple. This is not that hard. If you know you should hide complexity, I don't need to see that unless I say yes, just hide it. Just hide it. It's a good rule. This is not a great interface, okay? But they're trying to hide information, and we're going to at least give them that, okay? So, they've got this, every time you hit on a certain line, this is for support, you can open up an area where you see lots more detail. Okay, good. You couldn't possibly fit any of that detail in one area. You don't really want users going off a screen and back on because, power users, they kind of hate that. You and I probably hate that in any application we use. So you get the idea. It's sort of like you click on something and also you get some other things pop up. That's why you have little modals, stuff that you don't use all the time. Now, if you're in an interface where everything is a little modal and it's a big pain, like something like teamwork or something like that, which we used to use, it takes approximately a week of using that before your entire team says, my God, the modals, right? And it's too much, right? So you can go too far with this, of course. You go too far when you're forcing people to do too many clicks, to do too many things every single time, right? That's what we don't want. And this is teamwork, in fact. And at the very least, it allows us, you see that, it allows us to collapse things we don't need. Okay, not bad. But we're going to see by the end of this talk where this is going wrong. It's trying to do right by giving us space. But like SharePoint, it fails. And everything is too wide. It's difficult to know where anything is. If anyone would like to talk to me about the failings of the SharePoint interface when we're done, I would love to talk to you about that. But I purposefully didn't use any of that as in any examples today. This is a good little article. You can read it in 5 minutes, and it'll sort of inspire you to think about how to deal with grids better. I could have just talked about grids today, because that's what we have mostly to make. This is a nice little UX-y introduction to all the different things you could be doing to conserve space and do grids better. We'll talk about a couple things, but this is a fun one. Okay, we want to preserve details for people. Remember, if I need to see it, and I need to see it all the time, you can't hide it from me. Okay, if I must see it. So, very typical thing, probably you've done this. Sometimes people do this just because they can, but you really should only do things if you have a great reason. Now, if you have this header row, sure, it would be nice if your grid is has a billion records that you constantly know what you're looking at. All we did was make a little sticky header row. It's not that big a deal. You've probably done this, but this is a power move because you've conserved space completely. You've done almost nothing but allow your user to see all the context and continue to see as much data as possible. In fact, here, with this particular example, this, for reasons I'll explain in a minute, tests well, except that our users felt it was too spacious and they needed it to be a little less spacious because they wanted more data. And so the trick was, don't crunch it down too far to where you can't tell what anything is, but don't give it too much space so I don't get enough data. That's when you're talking with expert users, that's what you want, that's what we want, that's what they want. Everything you put into an interface should be based on fonts that were prepared specifically for interfaces, for the screen and for complex interfaces. That means to be rendered super duper small, highly readable at small sizes, condensed widths. That's super important because everything if you're looking at a screen all day, every day, as we all probably do, you know, much stuff is hard to read, right? So here are our guidelines, right? Sans serif, that means no funky little accoutrements on the edge of your letters. Times New Roman is a serif, Arial is a sans serif. You want sans serif, but not Arial. Okay, right. You want to make sure numeric display is beautiful. That's extremely important because you're going to show a lot of numbers, right? Nothing fancy. It's got to be small. So here's just a quick example, right? There's a lot of type that fulfills these requirements. I just picked Roboto Condensed Light. It tests well. We've used it to great effect. As you go down the list, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. The only thing worse than Georgia for an interface is a monospace font. Because monospace takes up too much space and quite frankly looks really funny in any grid or data set that you have to scan all day. Very weird, actually. Okay, so back to this grid. This grid was using this condensed type. So bonus points for the use of condensed type here that's super readable and designed for the screen. All right, we could have done better in making this more compact, but there's some other things you'll notice we did that we'll look at in a bit. You know, we've alternated rows and we've highlighted a left row, the most important row, the thing that everyone cares about, gets the most power. And if you got to look at a zillion things, you know, humans are great at recognizing patterns, and alternating rows is just a pattern. It helps our brains process copious data. Without it, very terrible. Thus, many interfaces you see these days. Okay, proof that you can make a data grid that's dense, very small, very compact, and very readable. You totally can do it. We could even made it smaller, all right? But then we got it down as small as we needed to go. Now you can imagine this goes on for a long way, or there might be chunks of this. But if the users need to look at this all day, every day, they've got to be able to really take it in. Even the color we're using, which we'll get to in a minute, is attempting to help. All right, we're not giving them anything harsh. You don't want to look at harsh colors all day long. I don't. All right. So let's be intentional with color. First rule of color is to hardly ever use it. Okay, that's the first rule. But I don't mean that in the SharePoint way of not using color. They use color to very bad effect, or they avoid color to very bad effect. But here are some colors. Woo! You can use these. I allow you to use these. Okay. Look, there's some grays, and then there's some other big power colors. I'm being silly. There's other colors you could use, but we're not going to use too much color. Okay. This is real. This is in production. Okay. This is a thing. Now, the developers had their heart in the right place. What if we showed color to differentiate these sections? Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah, I guess. If you want to be, assaulted visually all day long, because this is something you look at for 8 hours a day. Wow. Let's go away from that. Look, alternating rows. Bonus points for trying. Okay, but now I've got to look at lime green rows. I've got to look at data that is very hard to read, even though there's not much there. So your column's got problems, and the color is horrendous. Right? So we want to use color for stuff that matters, not for decoration, which is the same reason why we want to avoid using icons all the time. Decoration is meaningless to us. All right, efficiency is everything to us. So, so 3 guesses as to where the thing is that you could do, and what we want you to do on the screen. Right? It's of course add a user. Right? It's green because it's basically one of the biggest, most important things you want to do on this screen, and everything else is just details. In fact, we probably would have hidden that left nav as well. You have links, right? They're blue, so I know I could link to something and I can add a user. Color told me that alone. You can't rely only on color. We'll get to that in a minute, but color is a big help. Because what if I were colorblind, for instance, right? But color should convey meaning and interaction. Now, here we are in a Western society, so these colors make sense to us. Go, be careful, stop, that sort of thing. Depends on your cultural context as to what colors truly mean, but here in Sweden, here in America, these colors are fine. And notice, going back to this interface we talked about, the very little use of color here. The color is simply conveying visual data, and the users need to see it visual, because this stuff changes like by the hour, and they just need to see it. And they know what these colors are, and they're the only colors on the screen, so they're easy to see. So all we did was leave color for the important stuff, or for interaction stuff that's super necessary. That's it. That's it. Right? That's not super complex. But there's hardly any other color because we don't need it. It's set off against sort of a dark mode view because the color pops better. We tested both. We thought let's give the users both options. We tested both. They hated the light option. They loved this. Killed the light option. And then we want contrast, right? That was the alternating rows. Contrast or patterns help us see things. They tried a lot of interesting things in this grid. It's a good attempt, but it's not there because you can see if there were better alternating rows, they actually are there. You can't see them very well, especially on this screen, right? If we did a little bit better, we could scan it fast, at a glance, rapid. That's what we want. Not only do we want the system to perform fast, we want the users to be able to perform fast. And follow accessibility guidelines. So in America, this is a big deal. I don't know how much this has become a big deal in the EU, but there are big rules behind making things accessible for users with low vision, no vision, that sort of thing. And that's the WCAG guidelines. So you can find them online. It's great. Build from scratch to these standards. AA is fine. Basically, you could test some things like color in your interface. Notice there is white text in these dark boxes, and a test has been performed, and they pass a ratio. You need a certain type of ratio according to the standards for them to pass a scan for accessibility. If they pass an accessibility scan, not only do you know they're good for folks who have poor vision, but they are better for everybody. All right, they're just better all the way around. So here's an example of something that fails. So designers are notorious for saying, yeah, but that looks better, right? Light gray on darker gray. All right, okay, save it for something that doesn't matter. Okay, this is another interface that's trying some things. Let's do a little quiz, because I've got a little quiz for you in a bit. But let's start here. Instead of me telling you what's wrong with this, someone tell me what's wrong. Raise your hand, tell me what's wrong. Or just shout it out. What you got? Yeah, oh yeah, that's awful. Yeah, I still can't read it. Yeah, rejected. That's what it says. Okay. Yeah, that's the worst. They're thinking right. Oh, we'll use colors to indicate status. Yes. But it fails for readability. It fails for accessibility. They tried. That's all I can say. They could have done better. Anyway, what else? What else is a problem here, based on what we've just said? Just yell it out. Come on, you can do it. I know you can. Yeah, they do. The colors steal attention, and they don't really react to the rest of the data very well. It's just this one little column, and you still have to look and see what the data is. They don't direct you to the right data. What do you think about the top? Useless. It's completely useless. In fact, it's so useless, I can't unsee the uselessness. And that's the first thing that users are going to say. Could we please see more of this grid? Because that's what the work is. That's what they have. That is the work, the grid. All this other stuff did not have to be this massive. It could have been done differently. So yeah, see, that wasn't so hard, was it? We're not like humanities people in here, but we're finding the problems with this pretty quick, right? You don't need an artist to tell you that. Okay, and of course I've mentioned we need to be aware of culture and color, right? Because colors mean something different in different parts of the world. Okay, content. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay? Okay, we're doing okay. All right. Every word matters in a complex interface. Every word matters. All these things have to be written in every single app we make. All of it. All of it. And if you let business analysts write it in some user story, good luck in it being the right words. All right? If you let us as developers write it, okay, some of us are awesome writers. Some of us, maybe not. All right? But all of this has to be written. This is just a wireframe. And all the words in here, not only were they written, but we walked through with users. Do you understand what this means? What does this mean? Right? And only when users knew it all, at a second, did we say we got it. And that made the ultimate app that we were making really usable, just making the words better. Words make complex interfaces better. Right? Even, every little error message you write is incredibly important because when things go wrong, that's when people get upset, angry, mad, aren't productive, aren't efficient. So these matter. So I obviously advocate, everyone needs a good, strong UX writer on their team who just can handle this. Is what they do. That's their profession. Okay, there's your rule. If your users use the word, you're allowed to use it. If they don't use the word, you're not allowed to use it. That's basically it. So you don't say things to my mom like query, because she's like, I don't know what that means. All right? Stuff that we've known since we were 10. Real people, mere mortals, don't know. All right? But power users, with us, jargon, fine, no problem. If we use jargon all day, your interface can use it. No problem. You're just doing what was right for user. You probably don't know what this means. I don't really totally know what all this means. Some of it's obvious. The users know. Acronyms, fine. Who knows what pre-1, pre-2, pre-3 means? Those are things. I don't know. The users know all that matters, and they don't question it. That's good. Internal terms even. No problem, as long as your users use them. And look, bonus points for using color to convey meaning. And just the meaning. Nothing else. No decoration. Meaning. And you got to use the right words from the beginning. So I mentioned earlier, we want to write every last word from the earliest stages of work, from the sketches, which we would be doing together as a team. And finally, you get a writer, UX writer, to get it right. That's how you get really great writing. That's how the best apps you use and the best services you use, that's why they're great, because they do this. Okay, more grid stuff, almost done. You should always, don't settle for defaults in your grids. I think this is Kendo UI. This is just a default way to look at a grid. It's not bad, it's not really good. It could be a lot better. This is also an out-of-the-box grid that has been customized. Okay, a little better, works for its purpose. This is an out-of-box grid, really customized. But if you're an expert user, that's a little better. Now we're talking, okay? Now we can put a lot of data in there that can work. And now if we went a little further and made the alternating rows better, until they love it, until they're efficient with it, then you got it. Okay, more you being the judge. What's wrong with this one? Just shout it out. The answer's not nothing. All right, so just go for it. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't think anyone knows. So yeah, the top is this irrelevant data that ostensibly is associated with a row that you're highlighting. Obvious, right? Okay. It takes up a lot of space. It's meaningless. Yeah, good one. See, some of these things, I promise, there's no real wrong answers here. They're really, truly obvious. That didn't take a lot of brain power to say, what is at the top? I don't know. I don't even know. Well, I mean, I know because I know what the system is. But also, let's look at a couple other things. You know, everything looks the same, right? Everything looks the same. The rows aren't differentiated well. There's a whole bunch of junk in every row. I can't believe they couldn't have done that better. They couldn't have made this simpler. We have icons over on the left. How many magnification icons could you fit in one interface? I'll tell you, it's a lot more than you see here because it scrolls on forever. And you know, if everything's special, then nothing is, right? Yeah, that's not that hard to critique. It's also hard to read. It's super small. They went so small that it starts working the opposite way. What about this one? Wait a minute, let's get closer. Well, first problem is this. Got plenty of space, aren't really using it. Admittedly, this is one result. There, look a little bigger, okay. Someone give me something on this. Almost anything will be right, I assure you. That's a good one. Yeah, there is zero styling consistency of any kind. I am certain there was precisely this much thought into that. That's a good one. How about this left nav? I have no idea what those pluses mean. It takes up a lot of space. The top bar takes up a lot of space. Who knows what it looks like? Bits of functionality were they just took a handful of functionality and just went wah and just threw it at it. That's basically what this looks like. Almost certainly that's how it happened too. Oh yeah, we gotta export. We gotta change the display. Whoops, gotta change the display to grids or cards. Just put it up there somewhere. They'll find it. Yeah. It's not that hard to critique this stuff, and we're critiquing it from our perspective. Okay, I gotta finish up. Okay, we're gonna finish by making sure we understand us, understanding expert users, all right? You gotta stay close to them, which means when you're dealing with anything with users, spend time with them. You will find out the problems with any interface just by spending a little bit of time with your users. Not even a lot, just watch them do their work, and you'll see, wow, we can't do things just like this. Pay attention to expert user workarounds. Ask them where the spreadsheet is. When they say they don't have an extra spreadsheet, say, no, really, where's your extra spreadsheet? Okay, because I know you have one. I know you have many. What are they? Why are you using them? Right? You'll find out how to make your interface better. And after they say they don't have a spreadsheet like 5 times, then you'll find it. So UX rules, those UX rules I mentioned about space, about clarity, they are the exact same rules for a novice as an expert. They're the exact same. You just have to apply them differently. Space means something different to a novice user than it means to an expert user. So all you have to do is stay close to your users. If you know they need more things in a certain space, give them more things in a certain space. Just do it according to strong rules. Don't just throw it around. Right? So it's a different purpose, same principles. You find out what goes wrong by testing your stuff. That's it. I mean, I know it's like rocket science, right? If you test your stuff, you will find its flaws, and you'll see how to fix it. Often the fixes you need to see are actually quite simple. The problems are huge. Fixes are not always a big deal. So you test all the time. You should be showing users your work before it becomes real. Even at the sketch level, you should do it. And you don't have to be a UX person or even a design person to do that. Anyone could do this stuff. Okay, couple things to read. These are really good. These help me. These are some of my favorite books on the subject of really data design. And they really get into grids and visual communication and how to make things small and still make them good. All right? And they're fun books to read. I think you really like them, especially the one on the left. It's really sort of quantitative. It's really, developer friendly. Right, as a good one. Okay, so you can do it. That's me. That's our talk. If you want to find me anywhere, kabam, that's where I am. I'm happy to answer any question. I know we're super late, I think. I think we need to be done, but I'll hang out. Thank you. I'm correct, right? We're a little late, right? 1 minute. Oh my goodness. I'm going to answer the question. You all can just leave if you need to, but I'm going to answer a question I get all the time, which is, what if you have both expert users and novice users in your same app? I get that question all the time. The answer is, you must design for the lowest common denominator, or else you don't have a product for those people. You have to do that. It's unlikely that apps like we've talked about have both novice and expert users all at once. It's unlikely. Even if people aren't computer savvy, they tend to be trained on these things, which helps you. But what you want for experts, for us, we want the shortcuts. We want the keyboard to work all the way through. We want access to power features that no one else needs to know about. That's how you do both. You give me the real search screen, right? And later you just give me the natural language. Just tell the universe what you want and it shows up, right, with AI. But you can't kick your novice user to the curb. That's the basic rule. You can hide things for expert users. That's the best I can do on that one. But it does work. See ya.